Well, hello, and thank you so much to Alexandra Antipa for joining us today from Germany. She is the author of M is for Mother, and I know you have some other books out as well, but I want to thank you so much for being here and for taking some time to talk to us today about your book.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Yes, me too. I have lots of notes I took while I was reading, but the first question is, what inspired you to write M is for Mother?
I think I wanted my story to be out there and for others to see that it is possible to pursue your dream of motherhood, even when the chances were very, very slim. And some people even told me, okay, you should give up, concentrate on other things. And yes, so I wanted this story to be written, to be told.
And really, when we're talking about family building, it's always about hope and persistence. I feel like they're the two common themes that always come up. You
Yes.
have to hold on to hope, and you have to be persistent in your journey and making those hard decisions.
Yes, only sometimes the road from hope to persistence can be long, because I think many women who suffer from infertility hold on to hope, but they fail to act on it. I don't know how to say, not because there is something wrong with them, but because they lack either the confidence or the necessary support.
Or the finances.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yeah, all of the above. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. How long did it take you to write the book?
I wrote it in 1 month, but the editing and everything else that followed took 1 year.
Wow, that's incredible. It was just a passion project. You just wanted to get your
Yes,
story out.
it was important for me. It was in a period when my daughter was a bit older and we had overcome the baby phase and we are all alive and thriving. And yes, I reflected back on many happy memories, and this is what led me to actually writing the book.
Wow, that's amazing. In 1 month, that's incredible. So I want to go through some of the things that you say that I kind of pulled out as things that I really connected with, and just kind of want to get your take on it. And so you say there's consistent themes throughout your book, and it's interesting that you talk about one area of your journey, and then you kind of come back to it later. But the theme is always very consistent. And one thing that you say is that motherhood is the equivalent of working 2.5 full-time jobs, and that it all piled up: motherhood, work, self-care, marriage, friends, family, errands, outings. Why are society's expectations so high for mothers? And when I read that, I connected so much, and I giggled at the 2.5 full-time jobs because it couldn't be more true. But why do you think society's expectations are so high for mothers? What is your opinion on that?
I think that we are living in times where perfection is demanded, and that is especially true for women, because they say, well, a father has to work, and yeah, there is the mother who can take care of the baby, but the mother also has her own aspirations, her own desires. She wants to blend everything to, I don't know, to match these expectations. We know we are not supposed to match them, that we can do what we want, and yet we still push ourselves to do everything and to ask more of ourselves. It's not enough that we have this pressure, we add our own as well.
Yeah.
And I think, sorry,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think that society sees us that we are trying, and then, okay, you can do it. You are a woman. Women can do anything. And I talked to an author once who is a man and a husband, and he told me, I don't know how you are doing it. You are also writing, raising a family, doing errands and something. I couldn't do it. Of course, because you are a man, you couldn't do it.
I recently came across a quote that resonated with me, and it was something along the lines of, "You can do anything, but you can't do everything." And I feel
Exactly.
like that applies here, because we do feel as moms that we need to do everything and anything simultaneously, right?
Yes.
It's all of the things, and I find myself saying that frequently. I can't do all of the things. It's just a
Yes,
lot. And being a mom in general, taking out everything else, just being a mom is hard.
it's a
From
lot.
It's a lot from conception, especially when you're having trouble trying, from conceiving to pregnancy to birth to raising a child. All of it is hard. And the kind of hard that it is, I feel it shifts. It's different when you're trying to become pregnant and then pregnancy in itself, and then you're raising a toddler or a newborn, right? The kind of hard shifts, and we have to validate that it's hard. And in fact, you say how it frustrates you that motherhood is presented as a fairy tale,
Yes, I
right?
think social media has contributed a lot to this aspect because, yes, there are moms who say everything that is hard, but most of them are trying to present this idealized image. And we go into motherhood thinking it's the same, only to realize, no, it is not. This doesn't mean it is not beautiful or that we are not grateful for the gift we have been given, but it's a blend of good and bad days, and we have to admit both.
We do, and sometimes not even days, sometimes moments.
Yes, yes,
One
it's
moment to the
true.
next can be so different.
Yes,
What have you found to be the hardest part of being a mother?
I think acknowledging reality, because when I wanted my daughter so much, and I thought, okay, now that I have her, everything is going to be perfect. And then I discovered that both me and her, we are humans, and we do not always behave as we thought we would. I was angry, I shouted, I screamed, I cried. And there were things that, okay, I didn't think that this was going to happen ever. I promised myself not to be this kind of person. But in reality, it had nothing to do with who I was as a person, but with me trying to adjust to this new role and trying to raise a baby and a little girl that will turn into a healthy individual, because this is I think the hardest part. We are trying not to replicate mistakes previous generations have made, and at the same time to make our own as, I don't know, as little influential as possible, to not make mistakes that she or other children will transform into adulthood into wounds.
Yeah, I love what you said there about we're trying to learn from others' past mistakes. We're just trying to do differently, and we're trying to do better. And it can't always be perfect.
Of course.
You're going to have those hard moments and those slip ups. And for me, I know I just offer myself compassion and grace and just tell myself that was hard for me too, as much as it was hard for my child, right?
Yes.
You also speak to what you call fragmented living. I loved this part too, because I, again, connected it. And what you speak to with fragmented living is constantly being pulled in just different directions: work, mom, wife, just life in general. And it's just such a wonderful way to describe the raw and the real of motherhood. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you navigate your day-to-day fragmented life? What are some tips and tricks you have for all of us? What have you figured out?
So I don't have too many tips because I'm still living in this world. But when my daughter was very little, I think it was easier to separate those moments. As she grew, she wants more from me, and I think it's very difficult. But the one way I survive is that I don't let myself get frustrated. I try to respond to her needs, but not exactly in the second she wants me to, because this allows me to complete what I have to do in the moment. And I think I also try to teach her that we are her parents, we love her very much, we want her very much, but it is impossible to be available every minute of the day for her. And I think it's not about finding a way to overcome this fragmented living, but rather finding a balance in living in such a world, because my mother kept saying the child gets bigger and the problems get bigger. and she will be with us for many years, and it's normal to have a part of us, so we have to make do with what we can. It's not, I think this is parenthood. It's not, it will not change as she grows up, especially if we want to be near her and to have a close relationship.
Yeah, it shifts. And what I heard you say was, it's so important to take care of yourself first.
Yes.
And there was one part, I think you were like typing an email and she came up and she went to interrupt you and you said, I need to finish this. And by the time you got back, you're like, I have no idea what I was even writing about, right? So it's about taking care of yourself first. And I also want to pull out, like, it's about setting boundaries also. Yes, you are the parent, you want to be with your child, and you also have responsibilities and needs that need to be met too. And so it's about establishing those boundaries with your child and saying, I care for you, what you have to say is important, and I need to finish what I'm doing, and then I will be back to you, right?
I think this also comes from the mentality in my parents' generation in Romania. I kept hearing many parents saying, I did everything for you, I let myself down for you. And this was because they did not have the tools to create these boundaries. They did not know how to separate things. And oftentimes we felt like we were to blame. And I don't want her to grow up and feel the same. She didn't ask to be born. And I have to find a way to be for her, but also be for me. And this is why it's important to fill my cup first, and then I can help her fill hers as well.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And you also say, and this kind of piggybacks on it, we need to fill our cup because motherhood is imperfect.
Yes.
Right? Life is imperfect. And you say, and I quoted it, motherhood is imperfect and raw, but filled with moments that lead to a beautiful vulnerability. It humbled me, and when I stopped for a second and analyzed how things unfolded, I understood the quest for perfection was not worth it. Why do you think we as mothers put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect? Where is this perfectionism coming in?
Childhood, I believe. This is the problem. It's this vicious cycle that we grow up tending to believe that life has these levels that we have to meet, and in a specific order. And for women, motherhood is the biggest stone. And when we see ourselves, finally, I have this, I have become a mother after wanting this for so long. Now, of course, everyone expects it to be perfect, and I have to make it perfect. I have to prove that I don't know how to say it. I had the right to receive it. I don't know. It's something about proving ourselves, and this is what hurts us a lot, because we end up chasing perfection instead of savoring motherhood. And children grow, and we look back and we sometimes have regrets, wishing, imperfection is best.
Regrets and guilt, because that was another theme I felt throughout your book. You speak a lot about guilt as being part of a mother's life, and that it doesn't even disappear. It's not going to disappear when your child is an adult. There's still going to be guilt. Can you speak more to that?
I think guilt comes from these moments in which we sought perfection, but we failed to obtain it, and the result was not what it should have been. We integrated the idea, I failed, I wasn't good enough, and we let this guilt carry on until later in life, until our children are adults. And as I have seen in my generation, it also creates a difficulty for us to interact with our parents. And once again, we have to break this cycle. We have to form a relationship with our children that is healthy, that is free of guilt, to let them know that we did our best. We weren't perfect, but we certainly did our best.
Yeah, we want that healthy relationship. We want them to know that we are doing the best that we can.
Because as it happened with me, I came up at a point in my life where I realized my parents weren't perfect, of course. And I judged them, and then I realized I had no right to judge them, because obviously they did what they could, and they made an effort, and they fought to ensure for us a better life. So I think this is something what any parent does, regardless of the generation.
Yeah, and as you're speaking to that, I'm thinking personally, I didn't understand how hard being a mom was
Yes.
until I got there. And then I kind of went back to my mom and had more empathy for my mom in some of those hard
Yes.
moments that, like, you know, that you just remember as a child that stick with you and you say, I'm going to do it differently. I have more empathy now. Yeah. Right. Because that's what you fall back to when you don't know what to do. You fall back to how you were parented, right?
Yes.
And so I think there's also, when we're talking about healthy relationships with our child, we also then can maybe heal some relationships through motherhood with our parents
Yes.
as well, I found. As you were writing, what did you learn about yourself as you wrote about your truth? Were any lessons kind of uncovered as you were going through and writing this?
I think motherhood made me more confident, and it gave me the opportunity to care less about what other people have to say. And despite being a perfectionist, it was one of the first times when I stopped forcing myself to pursue a certain direction or to do things just because others said to me. And of course, as a mother, you know that everyone has advice. And it was, I think, the first time that I said, okay, I can say no, and I can do as I want. And it is such a good feeling of freedom, of being able to create my own relationship with myself, to stop judging me for mistakes and for things that I'm still learning. And of course, to finally acknowledge that I'm not perfect, because until then I was running after perfection. I am still doing that, but I think I reduced the intensity a bit thanks to my daughter.
Yeah, they have a way of humbling us, don't they?
Yes.
But again, I hear you saying it comes back to boundaries and self-care, putting yourself first, filling up
Yes.
your own cup first. As you were writing, which part did you find was the hardest to write about?
I think returning to my childhood and writing about my relationship with my mother and my father. And once again, I know that I love them and they love me, but I was raised differently than I'm raising my daughter. And I sometimes feel that the gap between the generation is too big, and they cannot understand everything, because I was raised a bit in the communist regime. It was so different back then. Today we have more freedom, and I'm raising my daughter to express herself, to have an opinion. And for my mother, this is something that seems out of a book. She keeps telling me she's the child, she has to listen to what you are saying. And I respond, I have to listen to what she is saying as well. She has her opinion. And yes, I think this is the hardest part. This was the hardest part.
To write about, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would imagine that it stirred up a lot of childhood
Yes.
difficulties, challenges, if you will. Yeah, I can understand that. What was your favorite part to write about?
I think remembering the pregnancy and everything that it included, despite the fact that it was a hard pregnancy, I don't know how the brain does it, but it registers mostly happy memories and good times, and not the so many hours spent on the couch, not moving, not doing anything, but just, yeah, feeling her move and waiting for her to be born and imagining how she would look like and how she would be like. And it's nothing like I imagined, which is even better. And yes,
I think that's something we also don't talk about. And it's something that I talk to my pregnant mamas about a lot. when the baby is born, you don't necessarily bond right away because you have
Yes.
visualized what you think your child is going to look like and be like, and then you look at this little being and you said, oh, you're not what I thought you were going to be, and I don't really know you, and I need to learn about you, right?
Yeah, and I think everyone is just like standing behind your shoulder and keeps telling you, hey, you should be happy, you're the mother now. Look, your baby is beautiful. There is so much joy, but this joy can be overwhelming because you are trying to figure out who you are in that moment.
Yeah. Yep. No, and I think it's something that we don't talk about enough, and I think it's definitely something that we need to talk about. One of the most important parts for me was when you say, even though it was not all right for me to avoid facing infertility for so long, if I were to go back, I wouldn't change anything. The smallest grain of sand upon moving changes the world. Just like that, if I were to make the slightest alteration to my past, the present would be different. I wouldn't have her.
Yeah.
And I connect so much to that. But can you speak to that, and then I'll tell you why I connect so much. And this part I read a couple of times, and I teared up when I read that part. Can you speak a little bit to that?
It's not okay for me that I avoided getting a diagnosis. It's not something that I recommend, on the contrary. But as we see so many movies in which the actors have an opportunity to go back and to change things, and we see that life is different once we change. Were we to change anything, it would be different. And I had many people telling me, you could have had kids earlier. Imagine, you could have 2, 3 by now. You could have, I don't know, many children. And I keep telling them that life has a point. It takes you in a certain direction. And while you have the opportunity to make choices, it is also about these moments that are specific. And every mother says this about her or his child, is they say, my child is the best, my child is beautiful, but my daughter is really special to me, and I wanted to meet her, not another child. And I feel so connected to her, and we have so many things in common. And this is why I wouldn't change, because it wouldn't have been her. It would be another beautiful child, I'm sure, but her, she is the one I waited for, and for so long. It's hard to explain. I don't know.
No, I understand it, because for my journey, I got pregnant on my second IVF, and then IVF rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 didn't work. And I kept saying, why? And then there was like a year and a half, maybe 2 years in between. And then Riley was born. And then I said, now I understand why. It was supposed to be her.
Yes.
It was supposed to be her. And listen, if we had made different decisions, it wouldn't have been her. But it was supposed to be. She was supposed to be brought to us. So I connected on so many levels to that. And so often we talk about, we have to trust the journey and the process. And at the time as you're going through it, it doesn't make sense. And
Yes.
You want to know why, and you're angry, and you have the frustration and the disappointment and the hard feelings. And then when you get through it, you can look back and say, okay, I get it now.
Yes.
And I think that's so important to talk about, because one day it will make sense.
Yes, it's hard because you keep waiting for this to happen. You keep praying, and you would like a guarantee. I think this is how I felt. I wanted a guarantee that it would happen. But as you say, only after she was born, I realized that this is what I have been waiting for, and my guarantee was in the future, but I couldn't have known that. I had to get there first.
Right. Yep. So what are the important messages that you want your readers to know? What are the big takeaways you want us all to? There was a group of us that read this, so, and your other readers too. What do you want us to know?
I want people to know that infertility is not the end. I don't want to minimize it, but also to understand that once you hear this diagnosis, this doesn't mean that you should stop. You should at least try before you say, okay, I cannot have a child, because it can happen. It can happen that you might not be able to have a child, but I think it would be worse not to try and to remain with this confusion, with this desire, because I read this wonderful book that Sue Johnston said she wrote with others. And there was one woman there who said, I tried several rounds of IVF, several options, nothing panned out. And we decided to remain child-free because it was simply too hard to try again. And in doing that, we discovered another beautiful part of our lives in which we got to do what we wanted, to travel, to enjoy our life. I think until you try, you cannot know if this is something that can break you or not, but you have to try. It will be painful, it will be hard, but it will give you the opportunity to get closure and to move into the next segment of life, because yeah, motherhood is beautiful and it enriches your life, but it may not happen. And I think this was the hardest part for me, because I wanted to try. I feared it would not happen. And when it did, I realized, okay, it could have gone either way. And I think this is my main message. And I'm not sure if it's the right message, but it's the message I'm trying to send, that you should try.
Again, coming back to that hope and that persistence.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there going to be a sequel?
I am not sure yet. I have so many plans, so many ideas. And yeah, this fragmented living is segmenting my ideas as well.
So I see somebody's on the line. I'm not sure who it is, but does anybody have any questions? You can unmute or put it in the chat. Does anyone have any questions for Alexandra? No? Okay, well, Alexandra, how can our readers interact with you? If somebody wants to learn more, can you tell them how to find you, any social media?
Of course, you can find me on Facebook as Alexandra Antipa, on Instagram as well, under the same name. I am always able to talk and so interested in connecting with other mothers. And yeah, anytime you want to write to me, I'm up for it.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. I'm so glad that I met you. I'm so glad that I got an opportunity to read your book and to share it with others and to do this book club. It was something really fun and special, and just being able to speak to you has been amazing. So thank you so much for your time and for joining us.
It was great, and thank you to anyone who read my book. It was so great for me.